My entitled in-laws built their dream home on my grandfather's land without asking. When I legally removed them, they sued me for construction costs. I never thought I'd be in a legal battle with my wife's parents, but here we are. 3 years ago, my grandfather left me 15 acres of beautiful woodland property when he passed. It's been in our family for generations, and I've always loved the land, the creek that runs through it, the old oak trees, the wildlife. My wife and I built our home on one corner of the property, planning to keep the rest untouched. Everything was fine until about 8 months ago when my in-laws started talking about downsizing from their suburban home. They'd been making comments about how all this empty land is going to waste and how family should help family. I made it clear I wasn't interested in selling any portion of the property, but they kept bringing it up at every family gathering. Then, while my wife and I were away on a 2-week vacation in Europe, something unbelievable happened. We returned home to find construction equipment on our property and the foundation for a small house already poured about a quarter mile from our home, hidden behind a grove of trees. When I confronted my father-in-law, he acted like it was no big deal. "We figured you wouldn't mind since you're not using this part anyway," he said with a dismissive wave. "Besides, we're family. We'll be close enough to help with future grandkids, but not so close we're in your business." I was stunned. They hadn't asked permission. They hadn't discussed plans. They had simply started building on land that wasn't theirs while we were away. My wife was caught in the middle, torn between loyalty to her parents and recognizing how wrong their actions were. After a heated discussion, she agreed this crossed a line, but begged me to find a compromise. I consulted a lawyer who confirmed what I already knew. They had no right to build on my property without permission. When I presented this to my in-laws, they became defensive, claiming they'd verbally discussed their plans and that I was being selfish with all that unused land. I gave them 2 options: remove the foundation and restore the land, or purchase that acre at market value with proper surveys and legal documentation. They refused both options and continued construction when we weren't around. By the time I filed for a stop work order, they had already completed the frame of a 1,200 square foot house. The county inspector came out and halted construction, but my in-laws ignored it. They moved in a trailer and continued working, claiming they were just storing materials. Finally, after months of this back and forth and watching them blatantly disregard the law, I had the sheriff remove them from the property. The look of betrayal on their faces made my stomach turn, but what did they expect? They literally tried to steal my land. Now they're suing me for the cost of materials and construction, claiming I verbally agreed to let them build. They've turned most of my wife's family against us, painting me as the villain who made his elderly in-laws homeless. My wife is devastated. Our marriage is strained, and I'm left wondering how people could be so entitled that they'd build a house on someone else's property without permission, then act victimized when there are consequences. Am I missing something here? How could they possibly think this was okay? Update 1, 2 weeks later. First, thank you all for the overwhelming support. I wasn't expecting this post to get so much attention. Things have escalated since my original post. My in-laws' lawsuit is moving forward, and they're now claiming they invested their retirement savings in this project based on a verbal agreement we supposedly had during a family barbecue last summer. Absolute fiction. My lawyer says their case is weak, but we still have to go through the process. The most frustrating part is that they've been telling everyone who will listen that I'm trying to steal their retirement money and leave them homeless. My wife's extended family has been calling and texting nonstop, some even showing up at our door to talk some sense into me. The property now has a half-built structure that I can't legally demolish until the lawsuit is resolved. My lawyer advised against touching anything to avoid additional complications. My wife finally had a breakdown yesterday after her aunt called her to say she was ashamed of how we're treating her parents. She finally called her parents directly and told them exactly how their actions have affected our marriage and her mental health. It didn't go well. They accused her of choosing me over family and said she was being manipulated. We've decided to start marriage counseling next week. This situation has created a rift between us that we need professional help to navigate. She understands her parents were wrong, but the emotional toll of standing against them is crushing her. I've installed security cameras around the property after noticing some of my tools missing from my workshop. I hate that it's come to this level of distrust. Update 2, 1 month later. Court date is set for next month. My lawyer discovered something interesting. My in-laws took out a construction loan using fraudulent documents that suggested they owned the property. The bank is now involved, which has complicated matters but actually strengthens our position. My father-in-law showed up at my workplace yesterday, causing a scene in the lobby. He was shouting about how I've destroyed their dreams and stolen their future. Security had to escort him out, and my boss was surprisingly understanding, but it was humiliating. My wife and I have been attending counseling weekly. It's helping, but she's still struggling with guilt. Her parents have been sending daily emotional texts about how they'll be out on the street because of me. Our therapist suggested she temporarily block their numbers to get some peace, which she finally did yesterday. We discovered they've been holding family meetings with relatives, showing doctored text messages that make it look like I had agreed to their building plans. Fortunately, a cousin who attended one of these meetings felt uncomfortable with the manipulation and warned us. The half-built structure has become a safety hazard. After heavy rains last week, part of it collapsed. The county has now declared it dangerous and is pressuring me to demolish it, which I still can't legally do until the lawsuit is resolved. I'm now potentially facing fines for a hazardous structure I never wanted in the first place. Update 3. 3 months later. We had our day in court, and it went better than expected. The judge was clearly irritated by my in-laws' actions, especially after seeing the fraudulent loan documents. Their claim of a verbal agreement was dismissed, and the judge ruled they had no right to build on the property. They've been ordered to pay for the demolition and restoration of the land, plus my legal fees. The structure was torn down last week, and seeing that part of my property returning to its natural state has been the first relief I've felt in months. My in-laws have gone silent. No more calls, texts, or ambushes. My wife tried reaching out once the dust settled, hoping to begin some kind of healing process, but they didn't respond. The extended family has mostly backed off after the court ruling made the truth clear. A few have even apologized for believing the lies. My wife's younger sister, who initially sided with their parents, came over yesterday to talk. She admitted she knew they were wrong from the beginning, but felt pressured to support them. It was a small but meaningful step toward repairing some family bonds. My wife and I are continuing therapy. The experience has forced us to establish stronger boundaries and improve our communication. We've agreed that if her parents ever want to reconcile, it will need to include acknowledgement of their actions and a genuine apology. For now, we're focusing on healing our marriage and enjoying our property the way my grandfather intended, preserved and peaceful. We've started planting native trees where the construction site was, turning a painful chapter into something that will grow and thrive for generations. I've learned that sometimes standing your ground, even when it's painful and costs relationships, is necessary. Property boundaries matter, but so do personal boundaries. This experience taught us about both. Thank you to everyone who supported us through this nightmare. It's not the happy ending with reconciled family that my wife hoped for, but it's a resolution we can live with and build from.